Funko Pop. We all know here on the Transformer Slag how I feel about Funko Pop. And this is a topic so many people have been asking me to talk about. I thought I was just going to talk about it on Saturday Night live stream just this past weekend and put it behind me. But the news keeps getting worse and worse, and I figure I might as well just make a segment about it. That way people could just find it easily and hear my thoughts because, man, the inside baseball toy side of it from a business and financial standpoint is just absolutely brutal. And I figured I'd just put all my thoughts right here. And man, like they are messing up. Now, again, if you listen to this podcast, you know how I feel about Funko Pop, specifically. Funko as a company, I get it. They have things that they need to do. But Funko Pop as a segmentation of that company, of that branding, that's always been my point of contention and the problems that it has in a grander scheme of things. I'll get into that later in this segment. But let's talk about what's happening in the news with Funko in case you haven't heard. So it was reported across different websites, different financial websites, different pop culture websites, that Funko Pop is in a bit of a grind right now. The general consensus is that they probably won't be around next year. That's the belief. It says here, Funko Pop is $241 million in debt. Yeah. So last year, Q2 last quarter, they reported, we made all this money, they said to their investors, but we actually lost $1 million. Pretty bad. And they lost that money, and they were like, well, don't worry, we'll figure things out and make everything right. And one of the first things they did was they got rid of their CEO, which when that happens and they're removed by unanimous decision by the board, clearly there's something weird going on behind the scenes that we will never know the truth of. But Cynthia Williams was removed as CEO by the board of directors. Cynthia Williams originally came from Hasbro, but not from the toy side of things, because never these people who run these companies actually are proficient in what they're actually running. She came from Wizards of the Coast. She was a trading card person. And how she even had the gig at Wizards of the Coast was because before that she worked at Microsoft as part of their video game ecosystem team, aka microtransactions. So she was brought in. They lost money. They got rid of her. In September, they put in a new CEO, Josh Simon. Well then, Q3 now, and under Mr. Simon's short term, being in the company only for a month and some change, now they have this huge debt. To quote Mr. Simon here, addressing the investors, there is a substantial doubt that the company's ability to continue as it's going forward will probably be in dire constraints in the next 12 months. They might not be able to go on. Now, Mr. Simon, if you're curious about his background, he comes from Netflix, which is totally perfect for a guy who's going to be dealing in plastic, pop culture, toy manufacturing, and sales. Oh, God, what is going on here? So they're going to have to do like what they did during Q2, the second quarter. They're going to have to talk to JP Morgan Chase Bank, work something out with investing and loans, and who knows how that's going to work out. And when you have a CEO pretty much saying there's substantial doubt about the company's ability to continue, and he's saying this to the investors, and usually these guys, when they say stuff to their investors, it's usually corporate speak to get them to keep their stock. That's kind of rough. And granted, he then followed it up with, over the long term, what's the most exciting to me, I hope, is the equally exciting to our investors, the multiple opportunities to transform this company for substantial growth. So he's trying to spin it into a positive, even though there's a $241 million negative looming above them. And the belief is is that they're looking at what's going on with Pop Market with their Labubus and leaning heavily into blind boxes. They already have the general shape of a blind box Labubu in size. Why not just go full throttle? And Funko had already lightly tested this idea with their Funko Soda Pop series and, of course, their Itty Bitty Pops that also had a blind box and blind bag element to it. Yeah. Now, what does this mean for us as Transformer fans? Because we'll get into what's going on with this company, but what does it mean to us for Transformer fans? How does this affect us as Transformer fans? Well, not much, really. I mean, Funko, it debuted in 1998 with their wacky wobblers. That's what made them famous. And the reason why I bring that up is because, in 2009, long before there was Funko Pops, there was just Funko, the company, and they were making their wacky wobbler bobbleheads. There were some Transformer ones. Those were the very first Funko Transformer products, were the wacky wobblers of Revenge of the Fallen, Optimus Prime, Megatron, Bumblebee, and G1, Optimus Prime, Megatron, and Bumblebee. 2009, those were the very first Funko items of Transformers. And that was it. And that was it for a while. They did little things here and there. Again, this podcast has been around so long that we've documented all of this on the podcast when it was just an MP3 file on a private server. But we always kept up with what Funko was making, and we didn't have a problem with it. It was a small little thing on the side. And then in 2010, a little bit into 2011, Funko Pop debuted as a segmentation of Funko and slowly started to poison the plastic industry. In 2014, we had the Age of the Extinction Funko Pops, the beginning of Transformers and Funko Pops being a thing, where we had, I think it was Optimus Prime, Bee, Drift, Stinger, and then there was 2 store exclusives, which were both Optimuses, a metallic one and a sword one. I think that was Hot Topic and I want to say Barnes & Nobles. I think so. Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, so, and that was like the beginning of that. They didn't sell well. Transformer fans rejected it, didn't want to deal with Funko Pop Transformers. What a surprise. We don't want things that don't transform, that are overpriced for what you're getting, which is 1 point of articulation on the head swivel. So that was that. And then, of course, fast forward to 2021, we recorded it and debuted it here on the podcast when Funko Pop was coming back with Transformers. And we're going to have the whole new ongoing line of Transformers Funko Pops. And even me, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a hot mess. And every time we talked about Funko Pops, it was a hot mess. And it continued to be a hot mess. And now we have like over 100 different Funko-related Transformer product through the Funko Pop segmentation, whether it be pins, the oversized stuff, the undersized stuff, the keychains, the bitty pops, the standard stuff, the Mecha series. Hundreds of items under the Transformers branding of Transformers, whether it be G1, Beast Wars, or otherwise movie stuff. So if you're a fan of Funko Pop and Transformers, then I feel for you, because this might be heavily reduced and not happen in the future. But if you're a Transformer fan that doesn't care about this stuff, it will not affect you in the bigger scheme of things. Now, if you're a action figure collector, that is something where you might get affected in some areas because, let's be real, sometimes the only action figure forms of some of these bizarre characters that aren't, popular, sometimes might only exist via Funko Pop. And that was always Funko Pop's secret to their success, was that they had a figure for everything. And I mean everything. And I mean everything. It's just nuts. Nuts. But that's also probably their undoing, which we'll get into the money side stuff in a moment. But Funko, by them going under, you might lose your chance to get some of those obscure characters ever getting done as Funko Pops, or maybe some of their more obscure sidelines and stuff. But when we talk about the business side of it, now let's get into that. And it'll kind of also be the segue into the money stuff, because Funko is a whole bunch of different smaller companies too. You have Funko LLC, you have Funko Holding, you have Funko Acquisition Holding, which is also why they're losing money, because there's too many cooks in the pot here, in the kitchen. There's Funko Games, Funko Mexico's distribution, their Funko Global sales, their UK, their UE, their Far East Limited, and their spin-offs of that. And then they're a parent company to a whole bunch of other smaller brands, which they bought to then own them. And these brands, I feel they're just going to break away and just be independent again. The one that I feel that, even for me, because I like this one here, Mondo Collectibles got bought out by Funko, and I believe it was 2016. And Mondo Collectibles makes absolutely amazing 1x6 scale 90s throwback high-end action figures. Fantastic stuff. 90s, X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman the Animated Series. They do Ninja Turtles. They do Street Sharks. And they even sometimes dabble into 80s once in a while with He-Man and Thundercats. But it's mostly 90s stuff, and they do it on the highest level, and it's screen accurate as hell, and they're fantastic. But they were bought out by Funko. And if Funko goes under, I feel Mondo, they do just well. Every time they put out stuff, it sells out. I think they'll just break away and just keep doing their own thing, and they don't need to worry about Funko Pop and all the other Funko, meddling at the end of the day. Then there was Loungefly. They dealt in high-end pop culture bags aimed at, mostly women and stuff. It was a lot of Disney. They did do some Transformer ones, but lo and behold, the Transformer ones didn't sell well. Who would have thought that Transformer fans don't want to spend over $100 on a luxury bag with Bumblebee's face on it? So, but they kept with the Disney and the Star Wars and stuff, and they I guess they're doing well. Not, by the way, not to be confused with, because this is Loungefly, not to be confused with Pop Culture. No, I think it was called Culture Fly, which were responsible for the Transformers 1 products of the Matrix and the sticker set. That's a different company. And then, of course, you have Message Me, which is some kind of direct messaging app service that they bought out thinking it was going to be the future, like the next, I guess, Instagram or whatever, but didn't work out in the end. And then the one that they bought, which really, in a lot of ways, and this is the carryover financially, is they bought the company Token Wave, which is the NFT and crypto stuff that they started to dive into. And one of the many silly decisions that they made, number one, by having every company, every single brand, every single this and that, like that you could conceive, every sitcom, every movie, every television show, every video game, every Netflix series, every cartoon, every, spin-off toy line, TCG, there's a Funko of everything. Absolutely everything. And by being able to do that, you have to pay for licenses to do that. And while for the longest time, and this was always my own internal belief, how Funko kept their head above water was they would work out licensing agreements with these companies to protect their trademarks, but they took on more than they could even handle. There's no point in helping out a company keep their trademark for something if at the end of the day, yeah, sure, you got the license cheaply, but then you turn around and make the product and the product doesn't sell at all and you just take a bath on it. You just lose tons of money. There's tons of photos of people going to Five Belows, people going to Ollie's, and it's just walls and walls of brands that just served no purpose to be made into Funko Pops. But Funko eats the losses on them. And they paid for a license. And granted, it might have been cheap to keep that, I don't know, let's throw one out there, like Visionaries for Hasbro to keep that license alive, and it probably didn't cost them much to do it. They probably worked something out with Hasbro, but at the end of the day, they took a bath on all those Visionaries. They took a bath on all those Golden Girls ones or whatever. So it gets to a point where you start losing an insane amount of money. And then there was the reports of Funko burying stuff in landfills, and there was millions and millions of dollars of losses and dead inventory. There was a lot of sketchy stuff going on behind the scenes, but nothing was more sketchier than when they started to do NFTs and crypto. When they dived into that world, that right away told me this wasn't a company about making money selling plastic baubles. This was a company that was just about making money through short-term gains of the ignorance of others. Because when you deal in the NFT world, you're dealing with people that you're trying to seduce and trick into thinking something is money before you bail out easily. And man, when they went into NFTs, that was that. That was, to me, that was the writing on the wall that this company is poison. That they are really just, and no surprise, like that was during the Cynthia Williams era, where she comes from Microsoft with microtransactions, which in a lot of ways could be, a digital kind of thing that isn't, tangibly existing, except that, no one ever bought a microtransaction or a skin for a video game with the promise of it being an investment and worth money in the future. That's the problem with NFTs is, it's predatory. It attacks people who are sometimes, low in income and sometimes just not knowledgeable of how finance works, and their belief that this is their way out. And that was also the problem also when it comes to Funko Pops themselves, was as someone who has been a toy collector for 35, I'm over 40, but I've been a toy collector for like 35 years. I've been going to toy conventions and comic conventions with my father since I was like 9, 10 years old. And I saw the ups and downs, the get-rich-quick schemes of all kinds of different pop culture stuff, the boom of the 90s comic books and trading cards, and, oh, this is going to be worth money. I'm going to get my kid through college, as they always say. The Beanie Babies, the Toy Biz X-Men figures that at one point were like being, sold for $30, $40 because this was the first time this figure has been done as this character. And now you could buy them carded near 30 years later for probably less than what it cost with inflation at Toys R Us or at the time KB Toys back in the day. It's wild. It's wild. And Funko Pop leaned into that. So many people who would buy Funko Pops never open them, never enjoy them. You could say what you want about us as toy collectors, as Transformer fans, as fans of Marvel Legends, as fans of Star Wars or any toy collecting, SH Figure Arts. You could say anything you want about us, but you know what we do? We open up our stuff. We mess with our stuff. We enjoy our stuff. Funko collectors boldly buy it and keep it in the box because they even recognize, they even know that there is no true enjoyment out of this. This is buy and hoard. This is buy and put on the wall, and that's it. And they targeted that kind of mentality. They targeted that kind of investment mentality. Keep it in the box. That keeps the value, If Transformer fans thought about keeping the value, then we'd also keep it in the box. But we want to enjoy it. We're a different breed. But then again, so are Star Wars collectors. We all open our stuff and enjoy it and pose it. Pew pew. We got to enjoy it. But man, they just targeted a very specific kind of person. And the wall of Funko, the wall of shame that these individuals would accrue with the promise that they could cash out like an NFT, like a crypto, it was almost comparable in so many different ways. And this company is now suffering. And I mean, I'll say this right now. If this company does go under in the next 12 months, the demand and value for Funko Pop is going to take a nosedive. If you did have a Funko, hey, bro, my Funko Pop that I have here, it's worth $100, blah, blah, blah. Not anymore, because how it works is that when a brand or a company has a sign of success and will continue to be making new products and hype, the older product that has value holds. When that older product doesn't have a future, then things change. Sure, some of those rarer Funko Pops will still hold some kind of value, but it won't be those high highs that you were hoping for before. There is Beanie Babies still to this day that could still bring in 3 digits, but they're usually linked with something of pop culture nature. The Princess Diana is the one that always comes to mind. But the average Beanie Baby is 50 cents if you're lucky. If you're lucky. So then, again, I feel that this is all going to just be a mess. They got a new CEO. They're going to probably go the Labubu route. And I don't know what they think they're going to accomplish with that. I think that they got seduced at a lot of companies, and I don't want to name names, but when they, San Diego Comic-Con that just passed, Labubu was everywhere. It was all over that gigantic dealer room. And toy companies were looking at Pop Market and Labubu, or Pop Mart, excuse me, and going, what is there to learn from that? I'll be honest with you, absolutely nothing. Because Labubu is another classic example of lightning in a bottle. It's another classic example of something comes around, it's popular for a hot moment, and it's like lightning. It makes a lot of bright noise, makes a lot of sound. It's thunder. And then it's gone, and then you never hear from it again. And it's crazy. It's crazy that companies are looking at that and thinking that's going to be the future. It won't be. But it looks like Funko Pop's going to do that. And speaking of Funko Pop, you want to talk about bad investing. San Diego Comic-Con, Funko Pop had a bigger booth that took over like a huge corner of San Diego that was bigger than any other toy company that was there that weekend. Bigger than Hasbro, bigger than Mattel, bigger than Lego, bigger than Marvel's booth or DC's booth at a Comic-Con. They just constantly were swinging around their proverbial appendage, acting like they were the big wigs. But I was there that weekend. Yeah, they had people there. But you'd think with a booth that big, it would be packed. It would be insanely packed. But it wasn't. So the writing was on the wall back then even, that Funko's days were numbered. And that was at the biggest pop culture convention of the year. Either way, let me know what you think about all this. I've ranted enough, but I don't think Funko has much of a future. I don't think the company will be completely dead. I think what will be happening in the next 12 months is there's going to be a absolutely insane reduction of product that they're going to put out. I think that those products that they're going to be putting out are going to be calmed down heavily. I mean, we're not even going into the discussion of tariffs and everything that's going on with that too, that I'm pretty sure is also hurting them in a micro way. That it's something where they're going to dial it back so much that they're not going to be the same company that they were before. They're going to have to really rethink what they do. And how does that affect us as Transformer fans? Well, maybe you won't get your Transmetal 2 Cheetor Funko Pop. Maybe we won't get that far. But aside from that, I think we're going to be just fine. And Funko Pop, keep screwing people out of money because that's the only way you're going to survive. And to the Funko Pop collectors, I don't want to yuck your yum, but always be smart with your money because you translate that with your time from your life. So be smart with that. That's all I'm going to say about it today. Thanks again for listening to the Transformer Slag podcast and keeping you educated, entertained, and informed on everything going on in our beautiful Transformer world. And enjoying Transformer toys that actually transform and bring us joy on a puzzle play element. Let me know what you think about this, and I'll talk to you in the near future.